What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage over the X-Men. And with that being said, we're going to jump back over to the X-Men 1991 series. Now remember, when it comes to our coverage, we are currently working our way up to the good old Fatal Attraction crossover storyline. But before we are able to properly jump into that crossover, there are a lot of stories we have to cover that lead into that crossover. Like today's story that takes place in X-Men issue 20, 21, 22, and 23. This four-part story arc is really more about the idea of the whole big mystery behind Psylocke and also Betsy Braddock, or really Betsy Braddock and somebody else known as Kawanin. Let me explain. You see, Chris Claremont introduced this concept called the Siege Perilous. And the Siege Perilous was actually a cool idea. You see, it gave somebody the ability to have a new life somewhere around the world, a new beginning. But there was a catch to it, though. You see, you may or may not remember everything from your past life. Now, with that being said, when it came to Psylocke and the X-Men at that time period, they had to use the Siege Perilous. And the reason why? Because Gateway, another character, had warned them that they might be killed off by a group called the Reavers. And so you have Psylocke say everybody is going to use the Siege Perilous. And so they did. Now, when it came to Psylocke, though, you see, when she did use the Siege Perilous, she did gain a new life, but she also gained a new body as well. And usually that right there does not happen when you use the Siege Perilous. But we kind of find out that there was another character involved in what happened to her. And that would be a character known as Masuo. Now, Masuo was actually a leader of the Hand. And so he found Betsy Braddock, again, who was a British woman, and something happened behind the scenes that turned her into, well, an Asian woman. And so now we're kind of seeing the story telling us what exactly happened in that exact moment. What did he do to her to turn her into an Asian woman? But also somebody else is currently inside the body of the old body of Betsy Braddock. And that is why we have this story right here to kind of hopefully explain everything going on with those two characters. Now, this story does pick up where the previous story arc left off at. And remember, in the previous story arc, Colossus and the X-Men went to go pay a visit to his family. Unfortunately, he had learned that the government was always watching over his family, him, his sister, and his brother, because all three of them were mutants. Either way, it led to a point where Colossus' parents were killed off, and his sister had almost got killed off as well, but luckily he was able to save her. But the problem is right now, she is very sick, it seems. And so you have Charles Xavier kind of sad about the idea that the X-Men, each member of the X-Men, have lost somebody close to them. And so you have Jubilee in the room with him and kind of expressing her own kind of way that she's also sad for what happened to Colossus, because she was there on that mission when his parents were killed off. Now, in our last video for Wolverine, we had learned that for Jubilee, she had just learned what exactly happened to her parents. At first, she thought that her parents were just killed off in a bad car accident, but in reality, they were actually murdered. Now, this story arc does take place before and after that story arc. Right now, though, for Jubilee, she's going to go through a lot in the next few story arcs because she's seeing everybody else losing their loved ones. Now, you do have Charles Xavier wanting to check in on Colossus because, like I said a moment ago, this man just lost his parents in the last story arc. But also, not too long ago, he also lost his brother who had committed suicide. And so for right now, for Colossus, the last person who is a family member in his life is his little sister. And right now, she is very sick. And so for Charles, he's kind of like, hey man, she's been sick for a good while now. Maybe we should possibly do some more work on her to kind of see what is wrong with her. But for Colossus, he does not want the help of anybody at all right now. This is Colossus pushing everybody away except for his little sister. Now, let's get into some juicy drama because right after you have Jubilee walk away from Colossus and also Charles Xavier, she sees Psylocke, Betsy Braddock, who's currently in an Asian woman body. But also, she's wearing a very good looking outfit. Now, for Jubilee, it's kind of like, where are you going with that kind of outfit? And she's not going anywhere really. Like, she's saying the X Mansion, but she's wearing the outfit to go confront Cyclops with. Because if you see my last few X-Men videos, around this time, Marvel Comics, Cyclops was really thinking about the possibility of leaving Jean Grey for Psylocke. And for Psylocke, she wants Cyclops really bad. And so you have Psylocke go right over where Scott is at and begin to kind of flirt with him a tad bit, to the point where they actually kiss. Now, for Scott Summers, he does realize that he just made a huge mistake. He's all like, whoa, I just kissed Psylocke and I'm still with Jean Grey, so I gotta back away. And so he does. But the problem is his mind is still racing because right now he wants Jean Grey. But at the same time, he also wants Psylocke. Now, he was supposed to get ready to go to lunch with Jean Grey, but because what just happened, he needs some time alone. And for Jean Grey, she already knows what is happening. She's all like, hold up now. I know what's happening right now. Y'all are cheating behind my back. And so for Jean Grey, she's very upset. She's very sad. Now, this leads into the beginning steps of us learning more about the actual character Psylocke. Let me explain. You see, you have Jubilee going out of her way to look for Wolverine, and she finds him. But the problem is that when she finds Wolverine, he goes in attack mode. Now, he does not attack her, it's just that he realized something is off because he smells Betsy Braddock. But the problem is Betsy Braddock is currently inside. She can't be inside and outside at the same time. And so Wolverine, he can't see anything, but he can smell something. Now, Jean Grey, she does use her powers to see what's exactly happening out there, but just like Logan, she truly can't see anything at all. Now, after that, you didn't have Jean Grey just walk away, but she goes over to the Danger Room. Now, when she does, she sees that Gambit and Beast are currently using the place. Now, let's not forget, when it comes to our heroes, the X-Men, they have gone through a lot in a very short period of time in the last few story arcs. And so for Jean Grey, she kind of realized that Beast and Gambit are not using the Danger Room to train. Instead, they're using it to get away from the real world as a way to relieve all that stress they have in their body at the moment. But also, we're being reminded that there's something going on with Beast, but we have no idea what it is just yet. He's having a hard time opening up to the rest of his team. Now, we also get reminded that Rogue got severely injured back in the Executioner song. Now, if you saw my Wolverine video, the one where you had Wolverine and Rogue going over to the Savage Land, it takes place right after this moment right here. And so once you have Storm say that Rogue is okay to go out in the field again because now she can see again, they're going to leave for that next mission. But you also have Storm realizing that there's something going on with Jean Grey. And there is, because right now she is believing in the possibility that she might lose her man Cyclops over to Psylocke. Now for Cyclops, we see him currently packing up a suitcase. He's going to leave the team behind to get some space. And the reason why, because, well, it's not just because of Jean Grey and Psylocke. There's actually more to the picture. The whole idea that for Cyclops, he had a son with Madeline Pryor, and that son was unfortunately infected with a techno-organic virus. And to save his son's life, he had to send that child into the future. But then out of nowhere, you had this mutant known as Strife appear from the future saying that he is the son of Cyclops and Madeline Pryor, or Cyclops and Jean Grey in some folks' eyes. Either way, he comes back saying, I hate you guys, and attacks him and the rest of the X-Men. And so for Cyclops, he's kind of like, did I do the right thing sending my son into the future? Because now he is a madman. Now, Cyclops, Cable, Strife, they have no idea that in reality, Cable is the actual son of Cyclops and Strife is just a clone. Either way, Jean Grey sees Cyclops leaving the school, and she realized that she might actually lose her man. Now for Jean Grey, her whole idea now is to go ahead and confront Psylocke to kind of figure out, is Cyclops actually cheating on her with Psylocke. Now, Psylocke, oh my God, y'all, Psylocke does not care at all for Jean Grey. The girl wants Cyclops, and her goal is to get Cyclops because she says, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. I want your man. I want your man to touch me. I want your man to do all these different things to me. And you have Jean Grey getting upset. But the problem is, Jean Grey's not a fighter. Like, yes, she's very powerful, but she does not have hand-to-hand skills like Psylocke has right now. And so you have Psylocke say, hey, you are not going to attack me at all. And so you have Psylocke being able to take down Jean Grey. But right after doing that, out of nowhere, you then have Betsy Braddock in the room, the British version of Betsy Braddock. Now, for our Psylocke, she believes that this is a hologram. And the reason why? Because they're in the danger room. But this is not a hologram. This is actually Betsy Braddock, the British woman version of her. And you didn't have Betsy realize that this is a real person once she's able to make a psychic blade, very similar to Psylocke's psychic knife. And so right now, you have our two heroes realize, okay, whoa, we now have Asian Betsy Braddock and British Betsy Braddock. What in the world is going on here? And so then you have all the X-Men in the house at the time run into the danger room to see what is going on. They hear a lot of commotion. And when they walk inside, they see Betsy Braddock, but they also see Betsy Braddock, like Psylocke and Betsy Braddock. They're very confused. And so as we dive into X-Men issue number 21, you now have the entire team on edge. Because right now, the original Betsy Braddock, the British woman, is back. And she's saying, hey, listen, that one right there is a fake. I'm the real Betsy Braddock. But at the same time, you have the Asian Betsy Braddock say, no, I'm the real one. But for the X-Men, they're kind of like, who do we believe right now? Because right now, we should believe the British one because she looks like the one we had before this one had appeared out of nowhere. Now, for the Asian Betsy Braddock, it's more of like, no, you should trust me. I've been here for a while. I've been with you guys through so much in the last few months that honestly is crazy that you guys cannot believe me. Now, you have both Betsys wanting to fight against each other, but then you have Charles say, hey, y'all gonna stop right now. This is my house, and there's no fighting in my house. Now, you have Wolverine pull Charles to the side, have a quick conversation with him. Now, this is also the book kind of reminding us that when it came to Betsy Braddock, when she had joined the X-Men, Charles was not around. You see, for Charles, he was in space with his space girlfriend. And so while he was gone, the X-Men kind of were being led by Magneto for one point, but then on their own, and they allowed Betsy Braddock to join the team. And so for Betsy, she really didn't have a cool connection with Charles like most of the other members do, like Storm or Jean Grey or even Wolverine. But you also have Wolverine saying like, listen, I know that right now my nose is not lying, that both women are technically Betsy Braddock, but at the same time, both women are not Betsy Braddock. And so it's kind of like, what is really happening here with the whole idea of who is the real Betsy Braddock? But unfortunately, before we are actually able to have that conversation, we got to jump back over to Cyclops. You see, you have Cyclops paying a visit over to his grandparents, who have a cabin or some kind of business out in Alaska. Now, when he goes over there, you have both grandparents feeling bad for Cyclops because they understand that he lost Madeline. They understand that he lost Nathan, but they don't know the actual truth of what happened to his wife and his son. And so you have Scott say, hey guys, I think it's time for me to tell you what exactly happened to your great grandchild and, well, my wife. But now we have to jump over to the Dark Riders. Now, the Dark Riders were actually another group of characters that worked for Apocalypse. Now, when it came to the Dark Riders, they also believed in the same thing Apocalypse did. The whole idea of survival of the fittest. The whole idea that the strong should lead the weak, and the weak should be, well, killed off. And so either way, we see the Dark Riders going after a character known as Mesmero. Now, I'm not really going to sit down and explain who that character is. Just know that for the Dark Riders, they believe that for Mesmero, he does not live up to the whole idea of survival of the fittest. So they kill him off. But they also kill off one of their own. Now, the reason why they kill off one of their own, because that one begins to, begin to cough a lot, kind of showing that maybe he is actually sick. And this is another example of the idea that there is some kind of virus out there that is going to attack the mutant race. Now we have to pick up with Shinobi Shaw. Now, Shinobi Shaw is actually the son to, Sebastian Shaw. But around this time in Marvel Comics, Sebastian was supposedly dead, which meant that Shinobi was able to take over the company, but to also begin trying to become a huge crime lord in Tokyo's crime, or Tokyo's underworld. Either way, we see Shinobi right now having a meeting with another character known as Neowin. And I really hope I pronounced that correctly. Now, for Neowin, he is actually a crime lord as well. But apparently, the reason why you have these two guys meeting up is to make a deal. You see, for Neowin, he wants his best assassin back, Kawanin. At the same time, for Shinobi, he wants the X-Men dead. And so it's Shinobi saying, maybe, just maybe, we could work together to achieve both our goals. But at the same time, if you help me, I will help you somewhere else. Meaning that I know that you are trying to take over the Yoshida clan. Now, the Yoshida clan was actually being led by a character known as Mariko. And Mariko was the ex-lover of Wolverine. But unfortunately, she died a while back. And so now her clan is free for the taking. And right now, Neowin, he wants that clan. And for Shinobi, he says, I can help you get that clan if you want it. But now we have to jump over to an X-Men team. Now, this X-Men team, their main goal right now is to get some answers about the British Psylocke and also the Asian Psylocke. And so currently, we see the whole entire team going over to the home of Neowin. Now, Neowin is the other lord who just made a deal with Shinobi Shaw. But apparently, you have the British Psylocke saying that the Asian Psylocke is actually a traitor, that in reality, her real name is Kawanin, and she is his lord's best assassin. But also, Kawanin is working for Masuo, who is again the leader of the Hand. And so for this X-Men team, their main goal is to come over here, is to get some answers, to figure out who is actually telling the truth. Now, once they're able to fight their way through all the different guards who work for Neowin, when they get into his office, they find this painting. And this painting is, of course, of Kawanin, but the Asian Psylocke. And so right now, for Gambit and Beast, they are believing more right now that the British Psylocke is telling the truth. But now we have to jump back over to Shinobi. Now you have Shinobi having a meeting with another character known as Masuo. Like I said earlier, Masuo is supposedly the reason why Betsy Braddock is right now in an Asian body, but also he is the leader of the Hand. Now, when it comes to Shinobi, he just learned from Game Master that Masuo is allowed to continue on with his plans with Psylocke. And for Shinobi, that is a huge problem. Now, for Game Master, he is actually the leader of a group called the Upstart. Now, the Upstart are a group of characters who play a very sick game. You see, the whole point of their game is that they go around the world killing off mutants. Now, here's the thing. When they do kill off a mutant, they get points for it. But the more powerful the mutant is they kill off, the more points they actually get. And so for Shinobi, he was hoping to kill off the X-Men, every single member, and receive a lot of points for all their deaths. But now, with the idea of Psylocke being taken off the table, that means he can no longer receive points for her death. Now, we have no idea what Masuo plans are, but apparently he has some big plans for Psylocke. But getting back over to the X-Men, you have the X-Men right now still trying to figure out which one's the actual real Psylocke here. Is it the British one or possibly the Japanese one. But the problem is our heroes are then confronted by the Silver Samurai. Now, the Silver Samurai is actually part of the Yoshida clan, the same clan that was being controlled by Mariko, the ex-lover of Wolverine. But also Mariko was the half-sister to, well, Silver Samurai. Now, for Silver Samurai, the only reason why he is protecting the home of Neowin because Neowin promised to save the legacy of the Yoshida clan. And so the next chapter is now going to be our heroes fighting against the Silver Samurai. And so as we get into the next chapter, we actually pick up with Beast being knocked out and the rest of the X-Men team being the ones who have to fight against the Silver Samurai. Now, this battle does last for like a good few pages, but by the end of the section, you actually had Beast being able to get back up and actually knock out the Silver Samurai. Now, after doing that, you have Beast say, listen, I think I may have found the one thing that could finally give us answers behind the whole idea of which one's the real Psylocke, and that is when he reveals the diary of Neowin. Now, getting back over to Shinobi Shaw, we actually see him being able to join a meeting with 3 other crime lords, the biggest crime lords in Tokyo. Now, this group is called the Jigoku Crime Underworld Group. And this group right here, again, are the top crime lords in Tokyo. And so we are continuing the whole idea of possibly Shinobi Shaw joining this organization. But getting back over to Scott Summers, we see that Scott's still over at his grandparents' place. And then we do learn that he has told his grandparents everything that had happened to Madeline Pryor, that happened to his son. Every single thing, and the possibility that Strife might be his son from the future. Either way, you did have a knock on the front door of the Summers house. And so you have his grandfather go answer the door. And apparently it is their neighbor. Now you have Cyclops' grandparents introducing Scott to their neighbor. But then their neighbor says, actually, I know your grandson very well. Matter of fact, I met him a long time ago. And he takes his hat off. And this random man has a special kind of symbol. A symbol we only saw on one other person, and that would be Mr. Sinister. But getting back over to the X-Men, this is where we learn what exactly happened when it came to both Psylocke and Kawanin. So, guys, remember, when it comes to the Siege Perilous, it has the ability to give you a new life somewhere in the world. But you may or may not remember everything from your previous life. Now, the only reason why I'm bringing that back up again is because of this. You see, after Psylocke had used the Siege Perilous, she had arrived in Japan, unconscious, but her mind was officially broken. You see, she was founded by Kawanin, and Kawanin is the Asian Psylocke, the Japanese Psylocke. And so when she found Betsy Braddock, she tried to use her psychic abilities on the mind of Betsy Braddock. And then there was a massive feedback to the point where it kind of merge both minds into one, but somehow put both minds in both bodies. And so technically right now, both Psylocks are both Betsy Braddock and also Kawanin. And things get a tad bit crazier because for Kawanin, she ran off. But apparently she was founded by Matsuo, who was able to fix her mind supposedly, but made her believe that she was the real Betsy Braddock. And then on top of that, the other Betsy Braddock was founded by Neowin, who tried his best to work on that mind, but also made her believe that she was also Betsy Braddock. That is just completely crazy, but it only gets a tad bit worse. Because then you have Neowin walk into the room. Now, when he walks into the room, he basically said what I just said. The idea that both women are technically Betsy Braddock and also Kawanin. And so for him, it's kind of like, you know what? I should possibly give y'all more details about what exactly is going on here. But before we are able to get those details, we have to jump back over to Cyclops. And the reason why, because remember, he was just confronted by a neighbor. And so you had this neighbor and also Cyclops walk down the mountain or hill, whatever. And that is when you have Sinister change into his original outfit to reveal his true identity. And so you have Cyclops realize that now he's about to have a conversation with, well, Mr. Sinister. And so getting into the final chapter for today's video, we're actually picking up with Sinister telling Cyclops like, hey man, listen, I'm not here to fight you. I'm not here to do anything towards you at all. Really, I came here to talk to you. I came here to warn you so that you are able to warn the other mutants across the world what is coming. A virus that is going to kill off the mutant race. Now, let's not forget, we already saw a couple of characters who have been affected by this unknown virus, and they are basically dying from it. Let's not forget that a few videos ago, we had Moira Taggart tell us that she saw people who had gotten this virus, and once they do get the virus, they're dead. And so right now, it's Sinister saying, let me tell you the actual origin of this virus. And so really, this is a callback to the Executioner song, because in that event, we saw Sinister pretending to be Apocalypse as a way to trick the Horsemen of Apocalypse to work for him to go capture Cyclops and Jean Grey. And once they were captured, he handed them over to Strife. Now, in return, Strife handed him Summer DNA. Now, we do learn that it wasn't Scott's DNA nor Jean Grey's DNA. It was actually Strife DNA. And so we're continuing to play with the idea of the possibility that Strife could be the son of Cyclops and Jean Grey. Either way, once you had Sinister get the container that was supposedly containing the DNA of Strife, he found out there was actually a virus inside. And that virus is now spreading. But that virus is only going after the mutant race, killing them off one by one. And so then, while you have Scott hearing all of this, the Dark Riders arrive. Now we jump back over to the X-Men who are currently in Japan, and we're also continuing the whole idea of supposedly learning more about who is the real Psylocke, or possibly are they both the real Psylocke. Unfortunately, these 2 pages are just teasing the whole idea of giving us that information, because then we have to quickly jump over to Wolverine. Now, if you saw my video when it came to Wolverine, Rogue, and Jubilee going into the Savage Land, that took place right before this page right here. And so we learned our 3 heroes went into the Savage Land looking for somebody. Now, we were not told who they were actually looking for, but apparently Charles Xavier said, I need you guys to go out there to see if that person is out there right now hiding. Unfortunately for our heroes, they kind of got caught up with Sauron trying his best to take over the Savage Land. Now, once they were able to do it him, you then have Wolverine and Rogue being able to find some clues. And they took those clues right back over to Charles Xavier. And so we kind of find out that our 3 heroes went into the Savage Land to see if Magneto was hiding out there, because in recent videos, we have seen a lot of different clues kind of saying that Magneto did not die back in X-Men number 3. Instead, he is actually alive. And sooner or later, he might reappear and cause more problems for the X-Men. And so the whole idea of him possibly being alive, it scares Charles Xavier. It scares Wolverine. It scares Jubilee. But unfortunately for our heroes, they know they have no choice here. They have to continue to fight on against Magneto once he does return to cause more mayhem for our heroes. But let's get back over to Cyclops, Sinister, and also the Dark Riders. Now remember, the Dark Riders, they truly believe in the whole idea of survival of the fittest. If you're strong, you live, but also you leave the weak. If you're weak, you die or possibly fall to strong, and then you might die down the road. Either way, for them, they want to test Cyclops and also Sinister, because they are talking about some war coming down the road. Either way, they tried their best to fight against Sinister, and guys, let me tell y'all, Mr. Sinister took these guys down easily. I am talking about just in a matter of panels, this man took down the entire Dark Riders group by himself. And so because of that, they now have to follow his orders, because now he showed that he is the strongest and he has to lead the weak. And he says, listen, I'm leaving, but before I go, I want you guys to fight against Cyclops. Later. But getting back over to the X-Men team in Japan, we do learn that they have broken up into two groups. The first group being Beast and also Gambit, they pay a visit over to Shinobi Shaw. And the reason why, because thanks to Neowin, they have learned about everything that Shinobi Shaw is actually up to. The whole idea of Upstart. And so you have Beast and Gambit say, tell the others who are part of the Upstart organization that we now know that you guys exist. And sooner or later, we might pay you guys a visit. And so getting back over to Kawanin and also, Psylocke, they go after Matsuo to get revenge against him for what he has done to their minds. Now, technically, we don't get the chance to get the full idea what went down. All we see is our two characters being able to get their revenge for what he has done to their minds. But we have to move on and back over to Cyclops. Now, the ending of this video is going to be really more of us finishing off the whole idea of Cyclops fighting against the Dark Riders by himself. Now, after a few pages, you do have Cyclops being able to actually take down the Dark Riders. Now, once he does that, you then have Cyclops say, you know what, cool, I still hate your guys' guts because you guys are the reason why, including your boss, but again, you and your boss are the reason why my son was sent into the future. Because you guys and your boss gave my son the techno-organic virus. Either way, you also have Cyclops say, it's y'all's fault the reason why a war is coming very soon for all mutants and possibly everyone else on the Earth. For the Dark Riders, though, they're kind of like, yeah, we know because we knew what we were doing. And so they disappear. And with that, the book ends on that note right there. So guys, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.